Committee on Small Business. It is an unusual hearing because we are dealing with a subject of unusual importance. As we look at our economy today, no subject is more important and very few are as important as promoting the flow of lending to businesses, particularly small businesses. It's an essential element in unsticking the job situation. We are going to move fairly quickly. Let me just outline the rules here. First of all, we have three panels, and unusually, by standards of the Congress, the regulator panel representing the public officials will not lead off. They are coming second. We didn't want them to state their case and then leave. We wanted people who have questions that we need them to address to speak first, and then others who will speak after. So we have borrowers first, the regulators, and then the lenders. Because it's a large number of members and it's a tough day, we had originally planned to have this hearing on February 11th. The chair of the Small Business Committee correctly argued for having it on a day when there would be no time pressures on the members. We'd be here all day. Unfortunately, we got snowed out. And given the calendars and the difficulty of coordinating two committees, this was the best we can do. So we're going to move. We have agreed that there will be 2 hours for each panel. And we will keep the opening statements very, very short. You've just heard mine. And with that, I will now call on the gentleman from Missouri, who's the ranking member of Small Business, and then we'll go to Ms. Velasquez and then Mr. Backus when he gets here, if that's okay. So we'll do the DR. So
okay.
We'll go with the gentleman from Missouri, and then we'll go to the gentleman from New York.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to thank you and Chairwoman Velasquez for holding this important hearing on the ability of small businesses to obtain needed capital through the Commercial and Small Business Administration lending markets. Given the continued economic difficulties, America will be relying on the innovation, agility, resourcefulness of this country's entrepreneurs to produce goods and services that are going to create jobs and lead to long-term stable economic growth. To accomplish that goal, America's small business owners need capital, whether it's to purchase inventory, fund the purchase of land and buildings, or obtain the latest manufacturing equipment. While an army might march on its stomach, the American economy is going to march on capital. There's no doubt that the current environment for raising capital is difficult, even for the largest businesses with AAA credit ratings, when they have to compete against the voracious appetite of the most credit-worthy borrower in the world, and that's the United States government. So I can imagine how difficult it is for small businesses to find capital. The Committee on Small Business has held a number of hearings in which entrepreneurs testified about their inability to obtain needed debt capital. Some talked about long-standing credit lines with banks that were reduced or even severed completely with no explanation. Others mentioned that they simply couldn't find any capital at all. At those same hearings, bankers testified that they had credit available and were willing to lend. They may have been willing to lend, but apparently they were so concerned about the regulators that they are still keeping their capital. In these situations, the SBA programs are supposed to kick in and help small businesses obtain needed capital. However, even SBA capital access programs have shown significantly reduced lending activity. Further efforts to inject capital into the credit markets is going to increase the debt ceiling and federal borrowing, just as we've already seen. Simply making capital available will be of little use if the cost of such capital is so high that prudent small business owners will not take the risk. I'm very interested in hearing from all the witnesses today about their ideas for making affordable capital available to America's entrepreneurs. In addition, I would like to hear what regulatory actions are needed that will allow greater capital to small businesses without unduly raising the risks that created the current situation. Again, I'd like to thank you and Chairwoman Velasquez for having this hearing.
The gentleman from New York, the chair of the Small Business Committee, who is more than anybody else the motive